Tonight on Dispatches, we hear the true voices of Britain's Muslims.
We live in difficult times, and people are living in fear.
We reveal how Muslim integration in Britain has come to a standstill.
I only hear what Allah and His Messenger say. Can't you get that through your thick skull?
This film is about one of the most difficult and controversial questions facing this country. To what extent do British Muslims represent a threat to this country and its values? The fear is that some British Muslims reject the liberal, secular, tolerant ways that characterise Britain and instead want a Britain that bends to the wishes of Islam. And there's a real anxiety that a small but dangerous group of young men actively support the 7/7 bombings. Are these fears realistic? We do know that some British Muslims have uncompromising opinions.
In Islam, any person who commits adultery will be stoned to death.
But how representative are they? Channel 4 has conducted the most comprehensive and rigorous survey to date of Muslim opinion in Britain. We talked to over 1,000 Muslims, not just angry young men, but the elderly, women, the poor, and wealthy businessmen. For the first time, these results accurately represent the diversity of views in the community.
Do I feel British? Absolutely, yeah. I mean, born and brought up in this country, of course I do.
What we've discovered is important and should fundamentally change our understanding of British Muslims. It will also help shape the debate in how we tackle the threat of extremism. Because what our survey shows is that, in effect, integration has come to an end. Young British Muslims are less liberal, more religious than their parents, and many are determined not just to be different, but to be separate from the rest of the nation. To get to grips with the results of the survey, I'm on a journey through the country to understand what Muslims want. First stop, Stoke-on-Trent. The proportion of Muslims here, 3%, reflects exactly that of the whole country. There are no ghettos, so is it a place where Muslims and non-Muslims live similar lives. It is Sunday, and just as in any other town in the country, a group of young men are playing football. Azad and his friends were all born in Britain, but that doesn't mean that they feel comfortable with everything that is British.
If you ask any Muslim, you know, I've got no problem with anyone sitting in McDonald's eating a bacon and egg butty, because that's none of my business. Yeah. What I'm concerned with is the foreign policy of this country and every other European country.
I don't like no terrorists and all that. I just want everyone to live happily in that.
When a roadside bomb goes off in Iraq and 24 people, you know, die, it's the same as when 54 people die on the 7th of July. But where's the silences and the remembrances for the Muslims?
When the talk turns to the events of 9/11, their comments reveal views out of step with wider public opinion. They simply don't believe 9/11 was the work of Islamic terrorists.
I think it was all set up, if you ask me.
It was all set up to be.
It was all government.
For all we know, Bush and Bin Laden could be sitting in one room together right now and sipping champagne.
Who's to blame for 9/11? Is it Bin Laden or is it Bush? Or is it both of them? Why can't they get Bin Laden? Because if they get Bin Laden, it's game over. They'll have to leave the Middle East. And they don't want to leave the Middle East, so that's the reason they've put there.
They also think that Princess Diana was killed because of her relationship with a Muslim.
Why haven't they got to the bottom of Princess Diana's death till yet? You can see what happened there.
Do you know what I think what happened on Princess Diana's death? I think
inside job.
I think that because they thought that Diana would get married to that guy, Muslim guy, and if he would have had a kid, and then I don't know, someday he would have been king or something.
The surprising thing is not that some Muslims choose to believe conspiracy theories, but that these views are so widely held. In our representative survey, 4 out of 10 think Diana was killed to stop her marrying a Muslim, and half believe 9/11 was a conspiracy by the USA and Israel. It seems many British Muslims believe the establishment is conspiring against them. This is not a community at ease with the country they live in. Assad and his friends, part of the more than 1.5 million strong Muslim community now living in Britain. Most have families who came from the Indian subcontinent in the 1960s or 70s, or from Africa more recently. The big assumption was that, like other migrants, they would settle here and integrate into British society. But our survey shows that this process of integration is quite different when it comes to Muslims. 90 miles north of Stoke lies Bradford, a city with a large Muslim population. Many Muslims here have settled, like they have elsewhere in Britain, in the poor, deprived part of the inner city, where unemployment levels are high, educational achievement is low. In 2001, riots broke out as thousands of young men fought each other in the city's streets. The official report into those riots said that the main cause of the disturbances was the fact that Muslims and non-Muslims lived parallel and separate lives. These northern towns symbolize a kind of culture clash in which Muslims are seen in some way to be isolated, insular, separatist. The question is whether religious commitment is the force that separates Muslims from the rest of Britain, one of the most secular countries in the world. Certainly, our survey found that 93% said that religion was important to them. Shireen Najjarali, a 45-year-old mother of two, has successfully made her home here. She teaches children the Quran from her front room every afternoon.
So when you're reading it, it stays alif zabar a. All you have to say is a. Okay? All right. Try it again. Good. Very good. Who hasn't read?
Islam is central to Shireen's life.
I do whatever has to be done, wherever you are in the world. You have to do these things. If you are a Muslim...
You will bring up your daughters to be...
Like me?
Yeah.
They'll wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and read the namaz and then go back to bed. They'll do that. They pray, they'll fast with me, during Ramadan, and we'll read the Quran. No, this is it.
Shireen doesn't wear her religion any more lightly at work. She has a full-time job at Bradford College and openly prays in her office. Do they see you here as very religious?
Yes, I think they think I am religious. I pray, I read namaz, I read Quran, I fast, I give charity. Yeah, they see me pray. I've got my prayer mat, I've got my scarf, I pray here.
It would be easy to assume that living in secular Britain could be a real problem for Shireen. Not so. And do you feel easy in Britain? I mean, do you feel easy in Bradford?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I feel easy in Bradford. I've come here, I've lived here, I work, and I've integrated in the society. My friends have always been multicultural. I don't think, if I want to be more religious, I would put my friends away. Even though my best friend is an English woman, I wouldn't put her away. She's my best friend, she's my best friend. She comes to my house, we go out together. So I think I have a place for these people and a place for my religion.
And it turns out that the vast majority in our survey shared Shireen's attitude.
Being in this country, we feel very British, but we also have to adapt to our religion because it's a way of faith, and religion is so important. It also gives you the identity of what you are as well.
However, despite many feeling both British and Muslim, the survey revealed other views that were far less reassuring, particularly among those born and brought up here. The general assumption that as they grow up, second and third generations integrate more than their parents and elders did has to be re-examined. Our survey shows that many young Muslims are now identifying less with Britain and more with their religion than their parents and elders did. Ghulam from Leighton is 19 and studies biomedicine at London University. He's been elected an official of the National Union of Students. Like many young Muslims in the survey, Ghulam openly talks of his sense of separation from his country.
But it just makes you more angry with this country, and more discontent, and more disenfranchised, and you don't want to be with them, because they're just against you. It's like us and them.
I went to meet Ghulam at his local cafe with another friend of his, Jamal. He too is a student of politics at Westminster University. They don't feel British at all, but the question is, how extreme are their views? Do you even regard yourself as British?
In terms of the maybe geographical sense, then yes, yeah. But in terms of where I'd get any of my values or ideas from, or motivations to any action, I wouldn't take it from any non-Islamic source, i.e. Britain or any British values.
What upsets you about Britain?
I could never associate myself with another country which currently engages in oppression against not only Muslims but anyone who doesn't fit its interests.
This is what is radicalising Muslims. He gave an example of himself, how he changed. My situation was pretty much exactly the same, the Iraq war, This is what made me think, okay, why are they being attacked here? What have they actually done?
Many assume that potential radicals only come from the deprived areas of Britain. But the well-off and the well-educated are drawing away just as much. Ghulam explained that it was the very fact of his education that's led him to think the way he does.
When our generation, our parents and ancestors came, they came for the sole reason of making money. They weren't thinking about anything else. Now the kids, they can start thinking about all the other extra stuff, about educating yourself, about becoming a productive individual, an intelligent individual. And then, once we're intelligent, all that, then we start taking a realization of what's happening in the world. And that's what our realization, that's why I become practicing.
I would say I have a system, or I understand a system, Islam, which actually could be equally as good, if not better, in terms of looking after the affairs of its citizens, So, on a state level or on an individual level, I believe that Islam is superior.
Ghulam and Jamal want to convince the whole nation, including me, to become Muslim. You would like me to be a Muslim? Ideally. You would?
Ideally, I
You would like me to be a Muslim?
Of course, because ideally I view Islam has the solutions to all of man's problems, and for that solution to cater for the people and treat them right.
Strange, really. I mean, language, words are so important. I wouldn't call them extremists, I'd call them separatists. They're absolutely convinced that Islam really has much better solutions than anything we've ever come up with. But extremists? No, separatists. But this sense of separatism could become a threat if it leads to sympathy for suicide bombings. In our representative survey, almost 1 in 4 said that the 7/7 bombings were justified in light of British support for the war on terror. And Muslims under the age of 24 were twice as likely to show this sympathy than those over 45. We also found that 8 out of the 1,000 polled consistently chose the most radical and extreme answer to every question.
That is my identity.
Abu Muwahid is a 23-year-old graphic designer from East London. He wasn't one of these, but when I met him in a park near his house, he did not condemn terrorist attacks. You can tell me now what you think about 7/7.
The reason why they carried out those attacks was because of the foreign policy of Britain in Iraq. So what was the cause? The foreign policy. How to solve it? Remove the foreign policy, remove the British troops from Iraq. It's very simple.
Well, that
1 + 1 is 2.
won't bring more than 50 people back from the dead, will it?
Neither will condemning it. Neither will making new laws. It doesn't make sense. If we want to stop the cycle of blood, what's happened has happened. If we want to stop it, we must look to the cause. Because violence is not just absolutely forbidden in Islam. It depends who the violence is directed to. Violence against a criminal in Islam is considered a praised duty, but violence against innocent people is forbidden.
But those Muslims in the World Trade Center, if you just want to isolate them, they were not criminals.
Well, again, we need to refer to the text. We need to see what they were doing in the World Trade Center, and if even our jobs, our occupation in Islam must be based upon the text.
You mean if they had offended against Islam, it would be quite justifiable to throw a plane?
You see, if a Muslim commits adultery, then he would be stoned to death. A Muslim. I'm talking about a Muslim here. So
any adulterers in the World Trade Center, in your book, it's quite justified to kill them?
No, they should not be killed in that way. There should be in Islam, any person who commits adultery will be stoned to death.
Can you imagine yourself ever being driven to such extremes that you would consider taking up arms for Islam?
No, I would not. Me personally, I would not strap bombs on my body, and I would not call others to do so. But Islam orders me and obliges me to strive for my religion, to strive for Islamic way of life, and to defend my sanctity and my property.
But listening to our conversation was another local Muslim. He took exception to Abu's views and interrupted us.
If you live in a land which is Darul Kufr, land of non-Muslims, predominantly, you're advised, if you're going to live within it, you have to respect and live by the law of the land. If you're going to get all the benefits, the free education, the free medication, the free, the dole, for example, then, you are accepting handouts. you should go maybe to Egypt.
That's exactly what